Welcome to this week's episode of the Keogh podcast with me, Mel Harris. This is probably the most personal episode I have ever recorded to date. I'm going to share with you something that happened to me just last week because it's kind of where this episode was born. But before I do, I need to say this. Nothing in this episode constitutes medical advice. Everything I share today is based on my own lived experience and on publicly verified research. I am not a doctor. If you are experiencing any of the symptoms that I will describe today, escalating abdominal pain, inability to pass a bowel movement, bloating that does not resolve, nausea without explanation, please contact your GP, call 111 or go to A&E without delay. Always tell any medical professional that is treating you your full surgical history because it could make all the difference. Now, firstly, let me tell you something about me that you probably don't actually already know. I'm a workaholic and I'm incredibly stubborn. I cannot sit and do nothing. I am either working, or, working. When I'm not working, I'm usually distracting myself from working by dog walking or emptying the dishwasher or moving furniture around or even emptying cupboards and putting them in different places so nobody can ever find anything, or shopping for stuff that I don't even need. But either way, right afterwards, I'm working again. Now, they help with the pain, which is helping the symptoms, but they don't cure anything. And more importantly is they are highly addictive. Now, I now know that I've got an addictive personality. I was addicted to food. I was addicted to shopping. I came very close to being addicted to wine. But the point about having an addictive personality is we don't know we've got one until it's too late. By that time, you're already addicted to something. So I was never prepared to take that risk with any kind of painkillers, even if they were monitored and prescribed. However, on the morning of the 16th of April, just last week, I was blue lighted into A&E and I was screaming with pain. Not crying, not uncomfortable, I mean screaming the place down. The kind of pain that takes over your entire body, that removes every coherent thought from your head and then replaces it with nothing but the need for it to stop. It felt like I was being ripped apart from the inside. That's kind of the only way I can describe it. Now, apologies if the next bit is a wee bit TMI, but here goes. Basically, I hadn't had a bowel movement in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Now, that is a very long time to go without a poo. But now, on top of the pain of effectively constipation, I was also unable to do a wee. Now, my bladder was swollen and, painfully full. When you touch it and you think, oh my God, I really need to pee. The urge was desperate and overwhelming, but nothing was happening. It was actually my district nurse who made me call my GP, who basically immediately on hearing about the level of pain and the fact that I now wasn't weeing either, called me an ambulance. So my first warning sign for all of you is, if you ever find you're in a situation where you're in pain, you're constipated for more than a couple of days and not helped by any over-the-counter laxatives that you can get, and then you find on top of that you can't pee either, seek immediate help. Immediately. You haven't pooed for a while, laxatives over the counter aren't helping, and then you can't pee as well. It's a no-brainer. You immediately seek help. Ring 111, ring your GP, whatever it is, seek help. I can't say that strongly enough. Now, once I got into A&E, I was taken straight in for scans and x-rays, and when the results came back, it was pretty clear. My colon, the large bowel, the section of the digestive system that collects and holds all the waste matter before it passes to the rectum and heads down the loo, was severely impacted. It was heavily congested with fecal matter that basically had nowhere to go. And it was so backed up, it was causing a partial obstruction to my bowel. I say partial with glee. Thank goodness. Partial as opposed to a full bowel obstruction, which is dangerous to the point of life-threatening, and it can only be rectified with surgery. And right there and then, when I was in A&E, having surgery of any kind would have been extraordinarily dangerous and not something anyone wanted to contemplate, and you'll find out why shortly. It turned out that the type and amount of pain meds I have been prescribed would have started off the entire process by causing constipation. However, and this is where I want you to listen up, the primary contributing factor to this partial blockage was scar tissue. Scar tissue. And that is the subject of today's episode. We as a whole very rarely give any thought whatsoever to scars and scar tissue. In fact, most people often just think about scars that appear maybe after you've cut your finger or your hand, or you get a cut on your face, or anywhere in your body, you get a cut, it heals, you think of that as a scar, which it is. It's a surface scar. So it is imperative that we all know what I'm about to share with you. For those of you watching this podcast on video via YouTube or Spotify, you'll have noticed that I am not particularly looking my best, and am in actual fact sitting in a wheelchair in the studio recording this episode. You might also wonder what the hell kind of blockage or constipation I had that put me in a bloody wheelchair. Well, relax. That's not what put me in the wheelchair. And thankfully, the wheelchair is temporary, and I am on my way to recovery. But basically, I went into hospital in late March to undergo what's called a spinal fusion. It's a very big op, but no matter how much I was told of what to expect and what the risks were, I genuinely had no idea what I was letting myself in for. I'd researched it, I'd looked online, I'd been looking for other people that had had the same kind of surgery. But I don't know, somehow it kind of just didn't go in. Either that or I guess I thought I'd be different. I am no stranger to having surgery, quite big surgery over the years. And I've always recovered very quickly and very well. And I just thought, well, why not? Why should anything change after this surgery? And I genuinely thought that I was going to have a 10-hour operation that was going to be split over 2 consecutive days. So 5 hours on one day and 5 hours on the next day. I was going to therefore be having 2 massive doses of general anaesthetic. I was going to be put on huge amounts of really strong painkillers, and yet I genuinely, hand on heart, thought 2 days later I'd be up and about, back at work, completely coherent. Why not? That's me, right? Boy, did I get it wrong. Do you remember when you could actually talk to someone who knew your name, understood your business, and gave you advice you could trust? Well, at Simply Insurance Solutions, that is still who we are and how we work. We work with you to assess your current insurance needs and make sure that you have exactly the right cover. Nothing more, nothing less. With over 40 years of knowledge and experience, our primary objective is to secure the most comprehensive cover that's robust and relevant for you at the most competitive price. Whether it's the increasingly essential cybersecurity, your commercial property, business, or your home, call 01707 291 200 and press 3 and 3. It'll get you through quickly and you'll be able to book your free, no obligation insurance review. Remember, the gaps in your cover won't show up until it's too late. My orthopaedic surgeon, a Mr. Jan Herzog, really nice man, he led both of the procedures. The first part of the procedure also required a vascular surgeon, simply because of the complexity of what needed to happen at that level of my spine. So I'm not yet fully back on my feet. I am weak. I'm very lightheaded. My legs are kind of still finding their strength. I can walk, but only for very short distances and for a few minutes before I need to sit down. And the wheelchair is honestly a godsend. It means my family and friends can take me outside. It means I can get some fresh air, especially whilst the weather's nice, without the anxiety of whether my legs will hold me, whether or not my back will keep standing without me doing any damage to it and without too much pain. And to be honest, I'm being very, very good. The minute it gets too much, I will sit down or I will go and lay down. But you know what? I'm not embarrassed by this wheelchair. I'm really grateful for it. But you'll also notice I'm reading from my notes in front of me, rather than just doing what I always do, just talking to you. But like I said, I am on extremely strong painkillers, and 3 out of 4 of the medications that I am on are opioids. And anyone who knows anything about opioids will know they don't just kill pain. They do other things to your brain and your body that are really quite significant. You know, in the first few days, I was seeing things that wasn't there. I was experiencing deja vu, which I've never experienced before in my life. It was actually quite funny, if I'm honest with you. It'll probably go into the sequel to my first book. Anyway, I was slurring very badly. I couldn't form my sentences properly. I couldn't form my sentences properly. I was very disorientated. It has improved. I'm no longer seeing things. I'm certainly not getting deja vu anymore, which is a shame because I never did find out the lottery numbers. But I do still struggle to get my words out smoothly. I will sometimes reach for a really basic everyday word and find that it's just simply not there. I still have those odd moments of mild confusion. You know, I walked into what I call my understairs cupboard when I was supposed to be walking to my toilet, or I went to put my mug in the microwave only to open the fridge door and put it in there. But small things, little things, enough to tell me that I'm not yet quite operating at full capacity. And this episode is actually too important for me to risk getting confused halfway through it. I really don't want to lose my thread or get a date wrong or misremember a detail. This is about something that has happened to me twice, and something I believe every single person who has ever had surgery, particularly abdominal surgery, needs to understand. So I hope you can forgive me. But yes, I'm reading from my notes today. I can't apologise for that. The reason I've told you all of this, particularly my encounter with A&E, is because it triggered a memory of something that happened back in 2017. So I'm going to take you back there with me. It was the 27th of May, 2017. My husband at the time, David, and I had dinner with my family, so that's my brother and sister-in-law, my 2 nephews, at the lovely Darwin Brasserie in the Sky Garden in London. If you've never been, how can I describe it? It's one of those places that makes you kind of feel lucky to live near a city like London. It's fabulous up there. It's bloody expensive. Sorry, Darwin's Brasserie, but it is. But honestly, the views and the food and the atmosphere and everything, it was a really nice thing. And the reason we were splashing out on that occasion is because a few days later, it was going to be my birthday. So we were celebrating. Do you know, it felt like at the time, the beginning of a lovely few days. The next day, it was the Sunday, and one of my goddaughters, my youngest goddaughter, was going to come and visit me. And then on the Monday, David and I were due to fly off to Greece on holiday. Felt great. On the Sunday morning, I woke up in a really odd pain. It was very high up in my abdomen. It didn't feel like stomachache. It felt tender. It felt extremely uncomfortable. And I was very bloated. Very bloated. For those of you actually who are able to watch this on video, you will see a photo of me. It was taken a bit later, but it showed how bloated my stomach had become. I thought it would pass, but it was actually just getting worse and worse. David, bless him, went to the pharmacy to get whatever he could. He got me some antacid, he got me some Pepto-Bismol. Now I started throwing up. Literally, I'd take some Pepto-Bismol and I was throwing up. We rang my goddaughter's dad and said, look, really, really sorry, but I'm not feeling that great. We're going to have to postpone, which we did. I was trying to work out what the hell is going on. I was thinking, okay, so before dinner last night, I did mix my drinks. We'd had aperitifs, we'd had cocktails, and then I'd gone on to the wine. I don't normally drink spirits or cocktails. Could it be that maybe? I didn't know what to put this down to because it was so odd. It was such a strange feeling, and the way it was building, it was getting worse. And it got to the point where I was doubled up in pain, and I wasn't just throwing up, I started throwing up blood. And I said to David, I think you need to get me into hospital, and he called an ambulance, and bless them, they came very, very quickly, so I'm really glad about that. When the ambulance arrived, I think the paramedics just took my blood pressure and one look at me, and they started working on me literally straight away. They got me into the ambulance, they were working on me again. Me being me, oh no, it's okay, it's just a stomach ache, I'll be fine. I'm sorry to have troubled you. No, sorry Mel, your stats are telling us something very different. We're getting you into hospital. And they did. They got me into Watford General. Now, because I've had weight loss surgery, it's something obviously that I'm very aware of. And I also know that not everybody in the medical profession knows how to deal with anything to do with bariatric surgery. I was insistent. I told David, I begged David, whatever happens, they have to call Shaw. They have to. For those of you who don't know, Shaw Summers is one of the leading weight loss surgeons in the UK. He operates through Streamline Surgical. He's also a regular guest on this podcast. And he was my own bariatric surgeon back in 2007 when he performed my bypass, which he converted from a lap band that had failed. So he knew my anatomy. He knew my history. And he basically knows what the inside of my body looks like in a way that, well, nobody else on this planet does. So if anyone could make sense of what was happening to me, it was him. And I just didn't trust anybody else. And David did make sure they called him. So they did. Shaw's response was immediate and decisive. He instructed them to send every piece of imaging, every scan, every x-ray, everything that he could review remotely. And then he said, if you cannot find her a bed in a hospital with the appropriate bariatric surgical expertise, she is to be blue lighted all the way down to Chichester, where he was based at the time, and he would operate on me himself on a Sunday. He would come in on a Sunday and operate. I want you to sit with that for a moment, because that is not a small thing. This is the action of someone who genuinely understands what is at stake and will not let bureaucracy or geography or inconvenience stand between a patient and the care that they need. At the very last minute, a bed was found. It wasn't in Chichester. It was at St Mary's Hospital in Paddington, London. And as it turned out, that is where my life was going to be saved. When I arrived at St Mary's, the doctor on call that night was a Mr Mansour Khan. Now, I have to tell you about fate or luck or somebody looking after me that day. Whatever words you would use for the moments in life where something happens that you cannot fully explain, but looking back on it, that it was the difference between living and not living. Mr. Mansoor Khan had actually started his surgical career in bariatric surgery. He wasn't a bariatric surgeon that night. He was a general surgeon, and he was on call at a major London hospital on a Sunday evening. But he did have the right background. He understood exactly what a Roux-en-Y bypass does to the internal architecture of the body. He understood exactly what he was dealing with in a way that most surgeons on call at night would not have. Mr. Mansoor Khan operated on me at midnight on Sunday, the 28th of May, 2017. I did not know in the days that followed quite how serious it had been. I was recovering, I was in hospital, I was grateful to be out of pain. Thank you, morphine. But I did not know. I found out at my follow-up appointment with Mr. Khan, like 6 weeks later. It's Mel here from the Keep It Off podcast. And first of all, I owe you a massive apology. I promised a really exciting launch to celebrate our 1-year birthday, and it was due to happen on the 6th of April. But as you can see, life got in the way of life in a rather dramatic fashion, landing me in hospital. So many of you tried to sign up, and I'm really sorry that I let you down. So I am now officially going to move the date of that launch to the Whitsun Bank holiday, which is the 25th of May. It really will never be repeated, and it is only going to be available to 200 people. That's it. You're going to be signing up to become a Keio champion, and that will automatically entitle you to 50% off the Keio champion tier for life. That's just $9.99 a month. You will get a lifetime discount off of all our live events together with priority booking. We're going to hold Keio champion group sessions with me personally to discuss anything and everything you are struggling with or you just want to ask us. And if in the future you decide you want to change or upgrade your membership, great, because you're still going to benefit from that same 50% discount. But there is more, because Keio is a living, breathing platform that constantly evolves, and we need you there to be involved. So if you're extra quick and you are one of the first 20 to sign up, you will automatically become a member of the Keio Champion Inner Circle. You'll have voting rights on all new products launched by Keio in the future. You're going to be invited to our monthly brainstorming sessions where you can tell us exactly what else you want us to include in our services, or even if you think anything is not worth it or just needs changing. There will be in-person social meetups throughout the year and so much more. All you have to do, click on the link in the show notes or go to keomethod.com/FMO. That's keomethod.com/FMO. But be quick. When he explained, and it was really quite funny, I kind of walked into his office, and as I walked in, this, very, very professional, experienced surgeon went, oh my God, I have been waiting to see you. You have no idea. And this is how he's talking to me. Sit down. You have no idea what happened. And I'm like, okay, I'll sit. And David was with me, so I have a witness to all this. I sat across from him in his consulting room, and he told me what he had found when he opened up. And he basically said, Mel, I thought you were an alien. And I'm like, what? He said, when I opened you up, not one single vital organ was where it was supposed to be. Not one. I had to find them. I really thought, where has this alien come from? Right? He said, and then sense took over, and I thought, no, something's happened here. He found my organs, and he had to move them back into position, obviously. So what he said was that every organ in the abdominal cavity had been pushed, displaced, shunted out of its natural anatomical position by scar tissue, by the accumulated weight of years of internal scar tissue, adhesions. That's what they are called when there are significant scar tissue inside your body. They're called adhesions, and they had been silently, steadily growing inside me, thickening, tightening, binding things together, pushing things apart, and completely without my knowledge. My organs were holding on, he said, by a thread. Any later, you wouldn't have been here. Holy shit, right? I think I was in a bit of shock because I had no idea. The only things that I had been bothering me in recent weeks was I was very bloated, and I couldn't understand why I was so bloated because I was eating well, eating healthily, and I wasn't eating, I was specifically, in fact, not eating any foods that I knew would bloat me, like bread or anything like that. But that was, when looking back, my only clue. And you don't really think much of bloating. Anyway, basically, the blood supply to sections of my bowel had been compromised. It was a life-threatening bowel obstruction. If it hadn't have been operated on that night, that specific night, that particular time, the outcome would have been different. So as I said, he saved my life. I haven't told that many people actually about the full detail of that conversation. I might have mentioned it in passing or referenced it in context, but actually now sitting in the studio I think it's time to say it simply and plainly and without minimising it. On the night of Sunday the 28th of May 2017, I came very close to dying. The reason, the cause, was scar tissue, adhesions. And I really want to both properly and publicly credit two men who are part of why I'm still here. Shaw Summers, whose immediate response, whose insistence, whose refusal to allow me to be managed by people without the right expertise got me to the right place at the right time. He has always been an extraordinary part of my surgical story, and I owe him an enormous debt of gratitude. So thank you, Shaw, if you're listening. But also Mr. Mansoor Khan. He was the surgeon on call at St Mary's Hospital in Paddington that night. He operated on a Sunday at midnight, and he brought a background with him of bariatric surgery to what could easily have been an impossible situation, and who was honest enough 6 weeks later to look me in the eye and tell me the truth, rather excitedly, about how close it had been. So to both of you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I will explain in a lot more detail what scar tissue really is and how it works. And I'll do all of it in plain English, but I want to tell you about someone else, someone we've all heard of. Lisa Marie Presley, the only daughter of Elvis Presley. Lisa Marie died on the 12th of January 2023. She was just 54 years old. At the time, it was reported as a cardiac arrest. They thought she'd had a heart attack because she'd been unresponsive at her home in California. She was taken to hospital, but she died. 6 months later, the LA County Medical Examiner published the official autopsy report. The cause of death for Lisa Marie Presley was confirmed as a small bowel obstruction caused by adhesions, bands of scar tissue that had formed years after she had undergone bariatric surgery. The medical examiner's report was explicit. This is a long-term complication of weight loss surgery. The adhesions had caused sections of her bowel to become trapped. The medical word is strangulated. The blood supply to those sections were cut off. Her body went into metabolic crisis. Her heart stopped as a consequence. She had reportedly been experiencing okay, bear with me. I did tell you that I can't get my words out. Abdominal pain and not feeling well for some time before she died. but she didn't seek medical attention. One of the bariatric experts who reviewed her case described what appeared to be a twist of her entire intestine caused by the accumulated mechanical pressure of adhesions that had been growing silently for years. I remember reading that, and I remember the feeling that came with it, because I recognised it immediately. Not from a medical textbook, not from something a doctor had told me, but from my own body. From that Sunday in 2017, from what Mr. Khan had found when he opened me up. There, by the grace of God, go I. The same enemy, the same mechanism, the same silent, invisible process playing out in somebody else's body, years after surgery, with no warning until it was too late. Thankfully, the outcome was different. She unfortunately died. I thankfully didn't. But I've never, ever taken that lightly. Now, I don't tell you this to frighten you. I tell you this because, let's face it, Lisa Marie Presley was a public figure whose death was reported worldwide and whose cause of death, when finally confirmed, basically slipped past most people without the significance it deserved. It was a headline for a day and then it was gone. It should not have been gone. The thing that killed her is living inside the bodies of millions, if not billions of people who have had surgery, growing quietly, without symptoms, without warning, until suddenly it's not quiet anymore. Scar tissue, adhesions, are not actually what we think they are. So let me explain what we're dealing with here, clearly and in plain English, because the words scar tissue mean something quite different depending on where they are in the body. When you cut your finger, your body creates scar tissue which seals the wound very, very quickly. I don't know if you've noticed how quickly a cut on your hand or your finger just suddenly is pouring with blood 1 minute, and then next day you look at it and it's like, wow, it's hardly anything there. And you see it on the surface of your skin, a line, perhaps it's slightly raised, it might be a different colour to the surrounding skin. I mean, basically it does exactly what it's supposed to do. It heals you. That kind of scar is superficial. It's visible. It's doing its job. What we're talking about is completely different. And I'm going to tell you all about that on the second part of this episode. So keep on listening. I'm Mel Harris. Thank you for being here today. This has been the Keogh podcast. I hope you have found it interesting. What I want you to do, please, go online, keoghmethod.com/podcasts or /FMO. Stay in touch, subscribe, like, let us know what you think.